On the day the rebels slaughtered the city, my husband shielded me fiercely beneath his body. Yet we had long wished each other dead. He hated me for seizing the Empress's throne, which cost his childhood sweetheart her life. And he, to secure the imperial throne, had my father and brothers wrapped in horsehide as corpses. 10 years of marriage. And he never once showed me kindness. This lifetime, you shall never have your way with me. Yet the rebels' blades fell upon him. Drenched in blood, he never loosened his grip. I wept uncontrollably in his arms, believing we had finally reconciled. But he murmured his childhood sweetheart's name, slowly closing his eyes. If there is a next life, I will repay this debt. It turns out, he only felt indebted to me. That day, we both fell beneath the enemy's blades. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day His Majesty arranged our marriage. I lowered my body, hiding the resolve in my eyes. The imperial grandson is deeply devoted to his childhood sweetheart. This humble maiden is willing to step aside. Grandfather Emperor, this grandson will marry none but Ingjun in this lifetime. Within the purple forbidden palace, Liu Che knelt prostrate on the ground, banging his head heavily against the floor. Heavy jade curtains obscured the emperor's expression as his voice turned icy. The imperial grandson behaves disgracefully before the throne. Cast him out! Prince Liu Che was indeed cast out, just as in my past life. In that life, he knelt in the snow for 3 days and nights until he fainted. Yet what awaited him was still the news of his marriage to me. Our ill-fated bond became entangled from that moment onward. His Majesty no longer looked at Liu Che, but turned his gaze to me instead. His tone softened. Chair has been foolish. Yuan, what are your thoughts? Before I could answer, His Majesty continued to coax me. The imperial grandson has been lonely. Ultimately, I owe him. If you consent, your future will be boundless. My heart pounded wildly. Just like in my past life, His Majesty was offering me the position of Empress. But, in my previous life, I became Empress, only to see my father and brothers die in battle, ending with Liu Che and I despising each other. I recalled the day the rebels slaughtered the city, Liu Che shielding me fiercely beneath his body. The rebel's blade pierced his chest. In his dying moments, with his last ounce of strength, his eyes gentle, he called out the name of his childhood sweetheart, Ingjun. For 10 years of marriage, I believed him to be cold and indifferent by nature. Yet it turns out he too could possess such tender eyes, and cherish someone deeply in his heart. And my entire life, crowned with the precious Empress's diadem, I became a perfectly polished, flawless mockery. Very well. This lifetime, I shall fulfill his wishes. The imperial grandson's devotion is unwavering. This humble subject's daughter will grant his wish. I knelt on the floor, my forehead pressed against the cold, white marble tiles. In the purple palace, the sovereign remained silent for a long while. The sky grew dim. Candles flickered and crackled in the grand hall. The imperial consort trembled as she added calming incense for His Majesty. Only then did I hear the emperor's long, drawn-out sigh. Very well. After all, he is the imperial grandson. I have wronged you. Emerging from the purple forbidden hall, the cold wind laden with snow swept over my back. My entire body shook uncontrollably. Only then did I realize my back was soaked through. The cold outside the palace was extreme. When I entered the palace, the sky had been clear, but now the snow lay half a foot deep. Liu Che knelt outside the palace, his expression sorrowful. His usually handsome and upright figure now seemed to sway precariously in the snow. Liu Che refused to leave. He stubbornly insisted on fighting for a path to survival for his childhood sweetheart. If he had submitted to the arranged marriage, for the sake of our future marital harmony, His Majesty would surely have ordered the execution of his childhood sweetheart, Liu Ingjun. just as in my past life. But I loved him so deeply precisely for this profound devotion. I believed that given enough time, he would surely see my true heart. Later, I knew I was wrong. Fortunately, this time, I have decided to let go and grant him his wish. After all, we were husband and wife for a lifetime. Even in death, he shielded me. I stepped toward him, intending to drape my unfastened cloak over his shoulders. But he refused my kindness. His face cold, he turned away. The gold-embroidered cloak fell heavily onto the snow. I never imagined that in this life, he would still shun me like a venomous snake. I bit my lip bitterly. His face was deathly pale, yet his gaze was colder than the snow. You've gotten your wish. The hatred in his eyes was all too familiar to me. In my past life, I had endured that very look. For 10 long years. Your father commands a 30,000-strong army as Grand Marshal. And your elder brother is the youngest general. What in this capital could possibly go against your will? So he thought I'd accepted the emperor's arranged marriage. True enough. Before our wedding, I used to chase after him constantly. He scolded me, berated me, yet I seemed to have fallen into a dream of us living in perfect harmony. I pursued him, coaxed him, as if I could never grow weary. Reborn into this life. I feel so exhausted I can barely breathe. 10 years of resentment. 10 years of unrequited love. Complex, surging emotions nearly drowned me. I loved, and I truly suffered. This time, I've truly decided to let go, to grant each other release. My whole body trembled, yet I forced myself to appear calm and rational. You needn't do this. I can grant you your wish. Before the words had fully left my lips, Lu Che abruptly rose from the snow, his expression cold and hardened. He seemed enraged. Grant me my wish? What trick are you playing now? Ingjun comes from humble origins. Without you, there are plenty of other noble ladies. Do you think retreating is a ploy to force my compliance? He drew the long sword from his waist. He sliced my embroidered cloak lying in the snow clean in two. I can marry you, Cui Yan, but you'll never have my Rui in this lifetime. A bitter ache welled up in my chest. My heart felt wrapped in thick cotton. It pounded violently. A dull pain, yet I couldn't utter a sound. My name is Yen. My childhood name Rui. I am the only daughter of the great general. My father cherished me. My elder brother doted on me. They lived lives of constant peril, yet wished only for my happiness. But, in my past life, Lu Che truly achieved it. We became husband and wife. We despised each other. Until my death. I never smiled again. Silent. Cold snow blanketed the sky, settling between us. I nodded and said, "Very well." Lu Che froze, then coldly rebuked me. Hypocritical. He wouldn't listen to anything now. No matter how I explained, he'd only see it as me meddling. But he was, after all, the emperor's grandson. Lu Yingjun couldn't be the main wife, but the emperor granting her a secondary position wasn't difficult. Lu Che's departing figure gradually faded into the wind and snow. The bitterness in my chest dissolved into a bitter smile at my lips. So be it. The two of us. If one of us could be happy in this lifetime, that was enough. When leaving the palace, His Majesty had Lu Che escort me out. He rode a tall, sturdy horse, leading the procession. From my carriage behind, I secretly lifted a corner of the curtain. I could faintly glimpse his cool, distant back. Just like in my past life, he would always walk ahead of me. Whether I sprained my ankle or was too ill to walk, he would always lead the way with impeccable courtesy. In public, we played the roles of the closest and most distant emperor and empress. But in the quiet corners, he would light a glass lamp. On the imperial desk, he would sketch Lu Yingjun's likeness over and over. 10 years. Lu Yingjun had been dead for 10 years. Yet her features grew clearer and more vivid in his drawings. Between Lu Che and me, a chasm was carved, one we could never bridge. It turns out the living can never truly outmatch the dead. We harbored countless grievances. Later, rebel armies rose everywhere. The rebel king's slaughtering blades swept westward all the way to the capital. To secure his throne, he ordered my father and brothers to be wrapped in horsehide as corpses. The Cui family's army of 300,000, cut off from supplies by him, they were driven to the brink of ruin. Yet Lu Yingjun's brothers lived safely in the capital, living in comfort and wealth. I hated fate's injustice, hated his injustice. But in the slaughter of my past life, we both ended up with nothing but a tragic outcome of mutual destruction. Now he was alive, walking vividly before my eyes. At this moment, I suddenly felt that all the stubbornness of my past life no longer mattered. I finally lowered the curtain, resolved to let him leave my heart. But Lu Che suddenly lifted the curtain. His face was stern. "Get out." Only then did I realize the carriage had arrived at the general's residence. 2 towering, imposing stone lions stood before the vermilion gates. My elder brother and father were waiting at the entrance. Imperial cunning. Even if he disliked it, Lu Che would never humiliate me before them. He offered me a rare, kind expression, reaching out to help me down. In the past, I would have gladly seized the chance to leap into his arms. But now, I quietly tucked my hands into my sleeves. Stepping down from the carriage door, quiet, well-mannered, he stared at my empty hand, stunned. Clearly, this was exactly what he had always wanted. Lu Che thought I was putting on airs, his expression darkening before he could react. My elder brother, his face already grim, took me into his arms. He tenderly brushed the chill from my shoulders. Before I could speak, tears rolled down my cheeks. Reborn into this life, I saw my elder brother and father again. They were both alive and well. They hadn't perished under the rebels' blades. Their remains scattered to the winds. Heaven had shown mercy. They were still alive. I buried my face in my brother's chest, weeping uncontrollably. My brother's face turned ashen. He was always straightforward. But since becoming a general, he had learned to hold back his anger. He shot a pointed glance at Lu Che, his expression almost gnashing. "Your Highness is noble indeed. Has our Yuan offended you again?" His words were sarcastic, yet they succeeded in ruffling Lu Che's feathers. Before Lu Che could respond, my brother spoke up in my defense again. "Last year when your Highness's horse bolted, it was Ian who saved you, suffering 3 broken ribs from the fall. If Ian has acted improperly today, I implore your Highness to show magnanimity." That day the horse bolted. He was training the wild steed for Lu Yingjun. But the horse was too fierce. He was about to be thrown to his death. I don't know where I found the courage to rush forward and rein in the horse. The wild horse crushed my ribs on the spot. Lu Che glanced at my old injury and suddenly fell silent. I owe her. A sudden pang of bitterness welled up in my heart. What he owes me, is it really just the 3 ribs in my right chest? In my past life, he owed my father and brothers, owed the Cui family army 300,000 lives. But in the end, he took 3 blows to protect her, yet clung to his childhood sweetheart until his dying breath. The common people, the empire itself, none mattered more than the portrait of that sweetheart he traced night after night. Between him and me, there was only debt, only a transaction of interests, nothing but emotion. When I saved lives from horseback, I feared nothing for Lu Che. But now I am afraid. Afraid that my father and brothers will die, leaving me alone and desolate. As long as they live, I would gladly spend my life in prayer and fasting. Those things that never belonged to me. I have let them go. Lu Che. I no longer want you. Reborn into this life. My soul finds no peace. The beacon fires and wails of that day when rebels slaughtered the city seep into my mind at every moment. Amidst this chaotic age, my sole wish is to protect my father and brothers. Yet they are the very generals defending our homeland. I am proud of them. But I must stop this mutiny that brought the city's slaughter. I could no longer spare a thought for Lu Che. I opened my treasured box and packed away every gift he had ever given me. Only then did I realize, all he had ever given me were precious jewels. Valuable beyond measure. Yet devoid of any heartfelt sentiment. Unlike what she gave Lu Yingjun. Even a golden hairpin. Even a simple stool, she made them all with her own hands. I sent servants to deliver these items to Lu Che's residence. Lu Che flew into a rage. With a cold expression, he immediately distributed these things to his servants. He thought it was another one of my games, playing hard to get. But he didn't know. This time, I was serious. I truly didn't want him anymore. On the day the nobles of the capital went on their winter deer hunt, the snow cleared. The accumulated snow melted, finally allowing carriages and horses to travel. My elder brother knew I loved pom-poms and said he would hunt a rabbit for me. We set up camp by the frozen lake. 100 paces away lay the frozen lake. By noon, the deer would come to the lake's edge to drink. Then, amidst the clatter of hooves and the twang of bows, the fervent hunt would begin. Today, Lu Che wore full riding gear. My brother had privately mocked him, calling him nothing but a pretty face. Truthfully, Lu Che possessed considerable skill. But my brother had forged his path among soldiers, earning his living by the sword's edge. Lu Che's blade, in the clash of armies, proved utterly inadequate. I had never believed it. Not until our city was besieged and slaughtered by rebels in my past life. Only then did I realize his sword could shield neither me nor any innocent soul. My youthful admiration gradually faded. Only then did the raw power struggle beneath this imperial contest come into focus. Several noble ladies approached to chat with me. The imperial grandson is truly handsome. They regarded him as their prize, their eyes brimming with admiration. Yet beyond that, Lu Che had little else to boast about. Everyone knew the truth. Years ago, the crown prince was implicated in the witchcraft case. His entire family was executed. Only the young imperial grandson survived. Exiled instead. Had the escorting constable not risked his life to swap him for a condemned prisoner, Lu Che would have perished en route. To guard this secret, the constable took his own life. He was Lu Yingjuan's father. From that day on, Lu Che became Su Che. He and Lu Yingjun scraped by, living a life of hardship and compromise. Now, Lu Che has become the precious, revered imperial grandson. Yet in the eyes of the nobles of the capital, he has no powerful relatives, no elders plotting on his behalf, and no clan to support him. His only lifeline is the emperor's lingering sense of guilt. Without the royal marriage alliance, he was nothing but a paper-thin imperial grandson. A noble lady pointed distantly at Lu Yingjun. Look at her. That jade-embroidered robe does suit her well. My gaze followed hers. Lu Yingjun stood alone by the lake, utterly out of place. The capital's aristocratic circles were not easy to integrate into. No one spoke to her. Yet she remained composed. Wang Jiao of the Langyuan clan, known for her sharp tongue, pointed and sneered. Such a poor soul look. Her skirts threadbare from constant wear. How can her hands be so coarse? Others joined in the laughter. They say she used to sell tofu daily to fund the imperial grandson's education. What a waste of fabric. This gold-embroidered skirt can't stand the slightest snag or touch. A lowly commoner rising to a minor noble household? Merely a stroke of luck. Those few words spilled contempt like poison. I cleared my throat softly. Pitiful souls. All eyes turned to me. Wang Jiao chuckled. How magnanimous of you. Ah Yao. Not yet wed to the imperial grandson. Yet already concerned for his concubine. Her elder brother and Lu Che were classmates. When Lu Che was young, they had a major falling out. The Wang family held great power. Her brother knelt in the ancestral hall for several days. And that was that. Now their statuses were different. Yet whenever Wang Jiao got the chance, she'd inevitably take a verbal jab at Lu Che and Lu Yingjun. I saw right through her. Whether she's a concubine or not will be clear once the imperial grandson arrives. But shall I ask him for you? Wang Jiao, having lost face, dismissed the girls. Only then did Lu Yingjun dare approach. Thank you. I nodded. It wasn't for her sake. I simply couldn't bear to see women disparaging one another. She wasn't as timid as I'd imagined. She calmly returned my greeting and stood beside me to watch the hunt. The deer herd had arrived, circling the lake to drink. A fawn bounded playfully around its mother. They licked each other affectionately. That tender scene touched my heart. In my past life, Lu Che and I also had a child. But that child was short-lived. On the day of the heavenly sacrifice procession, we walked upon the city ramparts, blessed by the adoration of the masses. Yet as I followed behind Lu Che, I stumbled and fell hard. A sharp pain gripped my womb. The agony left me speechless, yearning only for Lu Che to turn and help me up. But he never once looked back at me. He merely said coldly, "Stand up. The subjects below are watching." Do not compromise the dignity of the Empress. The maids knelt trembling on the ground, too afraid to speak. Blood flowed across the floor. Yet Lu Che only frowned. Cui Yan. Stand up. You feed off the people's fat. This is your duty as Empress. A choice you made yourself. Marrying Lu Che. Indeed. I brought this upon myself. Pale-faced, I was helped up by the maidservants. That day's blood trail wound its way, covering the entire city wall. Watching the lively fawn, my vision blurred. Suddenly, an arrow pierced the fawn's leg. The herd scattered in panic. Only the mother deer refused to leave, frantically licking her fawn's wound. Lu Che galloped forward, drawing another arrow. He shot the mother deer in the chest. She collapsed. The fawn crawled on its knees to her side. It licked the mother's face in bewilderment, unable to comprehend why its mother no longer moved. Lu Che raised his bow once more. The white-robed youth beside him could not bear to watch. All creatures possess spirit, why must you exterminate them all? Ache? From afar, Lu Che turned his gaze toward me. His look held meaning. Raising a tiger invites disaster, never underestimate its threat. The white-robed youth, overcome with sorrow, turned his head and closed his eyes. Another arrow flew. The fawn collapsed beside its mother. My eyes stung. My fingertips dug into my palms until they ached. Only then did Lu Yingjun speak softly. Ache. The imperial grandson isn't heartless. His journey has been filled with hardship and suffering. She lowered her gaze. Her long lashes cast a shadow beneath her eyes. Half regret, half reflection. I have been a burden to him. She turned her head. Nervously, she fumbled a small vial from her sleeve. Only then did I notice. In her hand was a vial of the deadly crane's head red. His Majesty summoned me. Lu Yingjun's eyes brimmed with tears. Seeing the red poison in his hand, panic gripped my heart. I had already refused the marriage. Yet I never imagined His Majesty would still refuse to let her go. The succession of the throne. What possible connection could it have to an ordinary woman like her? Why must her blood pave the way for Lu Che? In my past life, for the sake of my love for Lu Che, I wore that blood-stained imperial crown. But now, I no longer want Lu Che. Lu Yingjuan's eyes brimmed with flowing tears. Miss Cui, I know your heart belongs to the imperial grandson. The words imperial grandson. She pronounced them with deliberate emphasis, masking the affectionate HA that lingered on her lips. Among the noble ladies of the capital, only you can help him go further. He has a childish nature. I beg you, don't leave him. Seeing my indifference, her eyes brimmed with sorrow. If it's not you by the imperial grandson's side, it will be someone else. Only Miss Cui can I truly trust. I will pray for you both day and night, wishing you 100 years of bliss. Her words were sincere yet desperate. To find someone to love the one she loved. Before she could speak, her heart was already shattered. Yet she wiped away her tears, her eyes holding a strength I'd never seen before. She lifted the lid, ready to drink the poison in one gulp. She couldn't die. I still must change the fate of my father and brothers. I snatched the poison from her hand. She froze. The imperial family's majesty has no place for me. I am destined only for the disgraced past of an imperial grandson. Lu Yingjun turned to look at Lu Che. He shone brilliantly in the hunt, bagging another stag. No one outshone him now. His majesty was pleased. He even drank half a cup more than usual. Lu Yingjun smiled contentedly. This was all I could do for him. My face cold. I tossed the poison into the icy lake. Miss Lu, my resolve is firm. This lifetime, I shall have no further ties with Lu Che. The porcelain vial shattered the thin ice layer and sank into the frigid lake. I watched her. My tone carried a hint of reluctance. If you wish to live, there is a way. Lu Yingjun responded lightly. Cutting me off. Live? What good would that do? Her gaze met mine, holding a calmness I couldn't decipher. Born into a noble family, Miss Cui likely knows nothing of how a common constable earns but 2 cash a month, barely enough to buy coarse rice for me and my 2 younger brothers for a single month. To earn an extra cash. To cut me a piece of patterned cloth for new clothes. Father took on the perilous task of escorting the imperial grandson into exile. The rich feast on meat, the poor feast on their children. He gambled his life to save the imperial grandson, earning me this gilded silk robe I wear now. She idly fiddled with the precious gilded silk draped over her shoulders. A hint of melancholy in her touch. How could 1 cash coin ever buy such fabric? He truly died for a purpose. The imperial grandson will forever remember his life-saving debt. But the capital's aristocratic ranks are too lofty. Only my death will free my 2 younger brothers from hunger. Spare our widowed mother from kneeling to wash others' clothes. And allow our Lu family to truly squeeze into this fiery, oil-boiling aristocratic circle. Her gaze met mine, calm yet utterly despairing. The living can never compete with the dead. The imperial grandson's heart would forever hold me. I was utterly stunned by her resolve. My father and brothers had died in battle, merely to secure a path to survival for me and the Cui family's army. A mother's love for her child was undeniable. Her decision was final. She whispered in my ear. I'm sorry, Miss Cui. I stood frozen in shock. A thunderous splash echoed. She had thrown herself into the icy lake. No, she couldn't die. Her death would tear open the curtain of fate. My life entangled with Lu Che. The tragic deaths of my father and brothers, all already sealed. I screamed for help, plunging onto the ice to save her. Lu Che galloped up, his face twisted with fury, as if he wanted to tear me apart. I knew he'd misunderstood again, but I couldn't be bothered to explain. What difference did his misunderstanding make? In his heart, I was insignificant anyway. I leaned over the ice hole and finally grabbed the edge of Lu Yingjuan's robe. The icy water pierced my bones, gritting my teeth. I shivered uncontrollably. Lu Che yanked me up and slammed me onto the ice. The small hole was empty. Lu Yingjun was nowhere to be seen. Only I remained. still clutching her garment. My strength was spent. Quick! Save her! Lu Che seized my throat. His eyes blazed crimson. His voice vicious. I've already agreed to marry you. Why won't you leave her alone? Lu Che didn't understand. It wasn't me who refused to let him go. It was the supreme imperial power. Everyone was too stunned by this turn of events to utter a sound. He looked at my hand clutching Lu Yingjuan's hem. He released his grip on my throat. He plunged into the icy lake and pulled Lu Yingjun out. Thankfully, she was still alive. Lu Yingjun lay on the ground, coughing up water. Her already haggard face had grown even paler. Lu Che paid no heed to the murmurs of disapproval. He cradled her carefully in his arms and strode away. He never once looked back at me. Fate brought us together. But in the end, fate tore us apart. The stinging ache in my neck made breathing a struggle. My brother rushed over in a panic, still holding the rabbit. The rabbit had escaped. His eyes red. He insisted on taking me home. In the warm carriage, I lifted the curtain. I saw the high platform. The white-clad youth beside Lu Che held a bouquet of wildflowers. He knelt before His Majesty. Your humble son is unskilled in riding and archery. But seeing these wildflowers in full bloom, I wish to present them to your Majesty. He knelt obediently, forehead touching the ground. Heavy snow had sealed the mountains, making wildflowers hard to find. Yet he had devoted all his hunting skills to seeking these blooms. His Majesty glanced at the bouquet of snow orchids. His fingertips tapped lightly on the tabletop. Very well. You have gone to great trouble to find the flowers your mother most loved. Today, I permit you to see her. He respectfully kowtowed 3 times. When he raised his head, blood trickled down his forehead. He seemed oblivious, his voice trembling with restrained emotion. Thank you, Your Majesty. Finally, I saw his face clearly. My whole body shook uncontrollably. It was him. His Majesty's youngest son, Prince Duan, Lu Xun. His mother, the Empress Dowager, had been cast aside by His Majesty, and he too had become an abandoned son, confined to his fiefdom. My heart pounded wildly. I recalled the day the city fell. Dressed in mourning robes, he had slaughtered the entire capital. The Empress Dowager, Consort Liang, had been a slave girl presented by a foreign tribe. Rumor had it her health had been poor after childbirth, and she never gained favor. That winter banquet night, I saw her. Her dark blue robe, neither new nor old, hung ill-fitting. It only accentuated her gaunt features. A far cry from the peerless beauty who once captivated the capital. Her expression was dull, her eyes veiled in a gray haze. Lu Xun gazed at her with reddened eyes. Yet she remained utterly unmoved. In my past life, it was said Lu Xun was profoundly filial. He became a rebel prince. For his mother, the Empress Dowager, who died tragically. For his maternal clan, which was annihilated. And tonight, his mother died, poisoned by a cup of wine. If I could have prevented her mother's death, would Lu Xun have lost his reason to become a rebel prince? The palace banquet was halfway through. An unfamiliar palace attendant presented wine to Consort Liang alone. A thought struck me. I knocked over the cup. Consort Liang immediately set down her wine and turned toward me. With her ears, she had lost her sight. What more did Lu Xun need to understand? His expression changed instantly. He knelt in the hall, his face etched with grief. He reverently presented a map of the Qiao tribe in the northwest. Consort Liang herself was of Qiao descent. Your humble son is incompetent, unable to help His Majesty conquer the realm. I can only present this map to His Majesty, laying the foundation for His Majesty's eternal legacy. The Emperor, advanced in years, merely moved his fingers. Liu Che understood and personally descended to receive the map for the emperor. This was the emperor's deliberate act of elevation. The one who would ascend the throne in the future would surely be Liu Che, not the older Liu Sun. Liu Che, brimming with confidence, glanced at Liu Yingjun seated at the end. She lowered her head coyly, yet cast a guilt-ridden look my way. I understood immediately. His Majesty had likely already tacitly approved of them. When Liu Che took his seat, he returned to the spot beside me. His expression was cold. Cui Yan, whatever tactics you intend to employ, since you pledged to facilitate this union, I trust you will honor your word. After a moment, his brow furrowed, hesitation visible. If you cannot extricate yourself, I may grant you the position of concubine. I raised my cup to him with a smile. May the imperial grandson and Miss Liu enjoy a century of blissful union. He was stumped, turning away with a face as dark as iron. In the grand hall, Liu Sun knelt for a long while. The emperor finally spoke. You must not linger long in the capital. Tonight, bid farewell to your mother, the Empress Dowager, and return at once. Tonight. That meant Liu Sun would not live to see tomorrow. He bowed his head heavily, then knelt before Consort Liang. His voice trembled. His hands shook as he reached for those lifeless eyes. Mother, I am a slave. Your eyes. Consort Liang clutched his face in agitation. She caressed it with lingering tenderness, then lashed out with a sharp slap. Her expression was resolute. Begone! You betrayed my people. You are unworthy to be my son. Liu Sun knelt on the floor, his sorrowful hand reaching for the hem of her skirt. But she suddenly stood atop the table, facing the emperor. Liu Dan, you deceived my people, despised and tormented me, and now use my own son to wound me. Did you not seek my submission? To make me willingly become a concubine? A slave? So your grandson could ascend the throne legitimately. She drew the dagger seized from Liu Sun and pressed it to her throat. You've gotten your wish. But you'll never hurt me again. The blade plunged in. The scene utterly gruesome. His Majesty's face paled. He staggered off the imperial throne. But Consort Liang's blade was too swift. Her body went limp, already lifeless. I threw myself over her, pressing my hands against her throat. Blood stained my fingers and robes crimson. Liu Sun rushed over, pressing his hand against mine. But the blood kept flowing relentlessly. A man's tears are not shed lightly. Yet Liu Sun wept like a child. Mother, don't leave me. His voice was hoarse, his eyes filled with despair. I should have been the crown prince, born to the empress. But father feared mother's clan. She was a princess sent for a political marriage. To save my life, she accepted the identity of a slave girl, washing chamber pots day after day. Inside the carriage, Liu Sun stared blankly at his own hand. The dirtiest, most despised work, she never complained, only to send me to Xuanqing to live. I was deeply moved. He lifted his head, his voice choked with emotion. Yet they had been young spouses, clearly once in love. He did not understand. The Empress was His Majesty's first love. The Emperor paved every path for her. But first loves are fragile. She was gone within years. Love and hatred found no place to rest. Only torment remained, spent daily upon the living, just as with me and Liu Che in my past life. Outside the carriage, a bitter cold descended. Outside, snowflakes as large as goose feathers began to fall. We were startled. His Majesty issued an edict, ordering us home. I returned to my general's mansion, while he went back to his remote Xuanqing. The emperor was heartless. He wouldn't even allow him to bid farewell to Consort Liang or wear mourning for her. I held an oiled paper umbrella. I stepped down to see him off at the city gate. The sentries guarding the gate had sharpened their blades and axes to a razor's edge. Suddenly, my heart skipped a beat. I watched the wind and snow batter his slender shoulders. Clothed in plain white robes, his life was as fragile as paper. So it was. The rebel prince who slaughtered without mercy in my past life had moments of such vulnerability. I thought I could change his fate, save my father and brothers. But now, it seemed nothing had changed. His mother, the Empress Dowager, still died. His maternal clan would be slaughtered by Liu Che within a month. The bloodshed in the capital would never change for me alone. Hurry away. I could only urge him to leave. Deep down, I hoped he might spare my father and brothers on the battlefield someday. Or perhaps, tonight, I should have killed him, to eliminate the threat forever. I stared at the guard's sharp blade. Unease and hesitation stirred within me. Such a razor-sharp blade. In the capital, it belonged only to the Imperial Guard, the feathered forest army. Behind me, horses whinnied. Liu Che, leading 300 armored guards, was galloping after us. Lu Sun stood stiff as a board, his gaunt frame rigid. The timidity he showed before his majesty had vanished from his face. Calm and composed. Seems his majesty couldn't bear to let me go after all. Liu Che's expression was grim. A feudal prince summoned to the capital without command deserves death. Liu Che turned his gaze to me. Cui Yan, why haven't you returned? Dealing with a tiger never ends well. Guards. Liu Che. 300 armored guards. Lu Sun was already surrounded. When the sovereign commands death, the subject must obey. My relationship with His Majesty is that of sovereign and subject, never father and son. Lu Sun offered me a gentle smile. He pushed me toward Liu Che. Thank you for seeing me off, young lady. That is more than enough. Your kindness shall be repaid in due time. So he knew I had deliberately dropped the wine cup at the banquet. My heart pounded wildly. If Liu Che truly drew swords tonight, perhaps the tragic fate of my father and brother from my past life would become irreversible. I couldn't leave. Lu Sun. He was the rebel Prince Lu Sun. He had fought his way from the barren lands of Xuanqing all the way to the capital. His cunning and scheming would never allow him to die so carelessly in the capital tonight. I stood before Lu Sun, glaring resolutely at Liu Che. You dare not touch him. Lu Sun froze. Liu Che's face suddenly turned deathly pale. He laughed bitterly. You and the emperor grandfather pushed our marriage aside, so this so-called accommodation was for him? Lu Sun and I arrived in Xuanqing. It was even more barren than I'd imagined. Just beyond the city walls stretched endless, desolate desert. When we dismounted, Lu Sun placed a hood over my head. Restrained. Considerate. The wind was fierce in Xuanqing. His voice was soft, nearly lost in the gusts. Why did you save me, young lady? I smiled, somewhat casually. If I said I fell for your highness at first sight, you'd never believe me. We're both intelligent people. We shared a knowing smile, understanding without needing to say it. That night, at the city gate, it was a matter of life and death. Yet His Majesty changed his decree again. He actually bestowed my marriage upon Lu Sun. Was it guilt over consort Liang's death? Or a desperate attempt to protect his last remaining son? His Majesty's intentions remained elusive to me. Yet regardless, he and I arrived safely in Xuanqing. Along the way, I witnessed utter devastation beyond the capital's walls. Starved corpses littered the ground. Displaced people drifted everywhere. Even barren Xuanqing seemed relatively fortunate by comparison. The world beyond the capital had long been engulfed in fire and water. Seeing my dazed expression, Lu Sun spoke softly to comfort me. I am alone and destitute, and Xian City is barren. I fear I have caused you hardship, my lady. I shook my head. As long as I remained by Lu Sun's side, I still held the chance to alter the fate of my father and brothers. I did not fear hardship. What puzzled me was this: the people of Shin City appeared so frail and weak. Yet in my past life, they had formed an army as fierce as tigers and wolves. They laid down their hoes, took up swords, and slaughtered their way into the capital. In my past life, they were not worthy of pity. But in this life, I have seen starving corpses, children traded for food. I thought of the capital still wallowing in song, dance, wine, and meat. Suddenly, I froze. To stop Lu Xun, to save my father and brothers, meant preserving Liu Che's dynasty, feeding on the blood and sweat of its people. Is this truly what I desire? After Consort Liang's passing, His Majesty fell gravely ill. When Imperial Consort Zhong delivered the imperial decree of marriage to Liu Che, the emperor was already too weak to rise. After days of tending to his medicinal soups, his features grew weary. Yet upon seeing Liu Che, a rare smile graced his face. Congratulations, imperial grandson. Your wish is granted. The imperial consort gazed at Liu Yingjun, who knelt alongside him to receive the decree, her eyes brimming with approval. At the Winter Hunt Palace banquet, His Majesty had merely nodded. Now, at last, he received the imperial favor. Liu Yingjun's face lit up with joy, yet she glanced at Liu Che with trepidation. Liu Che, however, remained impassive. The imperial concubine paused slightly, sensing a shift in circumstances. Her tone was earnest. The imperial grandson is young and bereft. His Majesty, in his compassion, the name of the betrothed woman remained unwritten. The imperial decree was opened, revealing the space for the woman's name indeed left blank. The imperial concubine bowed deeply. His Majesty intends to grant your wish. The imperial grandson may inscribe the name of his beloved. Liu Che accepted the decree. Yet he hesitated, unable to bring himself to write Liu Yingjun's name. Liu Yingjun smiled, her face pale, as she saw the imperial attendant off. As he departed, he looked at her with a hint of pity. You have stood by the young prince through humble beginnings. He is kind-hearted and will surely grant you a good outcome. Liu Yingjun thanked him, tears welling in her eyes. Her days of hardship were finally over. The Liu family could now stand among the nobility of the capital. Her widowed mother would no longer have to kneel before noble ladies begging for work to feed her 3 children. Her 2 younger brothers would no longer have to fight the nobleman's dogs for scraps. She would finally be free from grinding tofu day and night. She stood tall, her head held high among the noble ladies. Yet her body felt stiff. In the pavilion far away, even noble ladies of high birth would climb lightly onto Liu Che's lap. Wang Jiao peeled a grape, coaxing him. Your Highness, born of royal blood, noble from the start. Liu Che's eyes were jet black. Oh. His fingers pinched the grape she offered, examining it closely. Once, your own brother bound me beneath his horse and dragged me along, while you laced my horse's feet with poison, nearly killing me. Back then, you likely didn't see me as noble. Wang Jiao froze in terror. The Wang clan offers everything, Your Highness, only that you may act as you please. Liu Che's smile turned vicious. He placed the grape atop Wang Jiao's head, then retrieved a bow and arrow. Then stand. Let me see if today's arrows will obey my will. He drew the bowstring taut. Yet the arrow never left the string. Wang Jiao fell to the ground, her face deathly pale. Liu Che sneered coldly, finding it utterly tedious. What noble lady! Not even as good as Cui Yan. A kite rose into the sky. Liu Che's expression turned icy. Cui Yan. Why did he keep thinking of her? Dreaming of her night after night. Her filled every dream. Once, it was Cui Yan who chased after him, cherishing him. But once he remembered her, She turned and fled. She teased him deliberately, annoyed him, filled his eyes and mind with her image. Lu Che felt a surge of irritation. He drew his bow and nocked an arrow. One arrow pierced the paper kite. Life in Xuanqing is more peaceful than I imagined. My elder brother sent me a letter. His and father's positions are sensitive, they cannot come to Xuanqing. We understand that after the arranged marriage, we may never see each other again in this lifetime. Even the letters he sends home are surely scrutinized by others. Yet, far from the capital, my heart has found peace. Xuanqing borders barbarian lands. Yet trade flourishes here. Curiosities from the western regions always find their way in. Lu Xun never knew what I liked, so he personally selected intriguing gifts for me. Exquisite ivory carvings, intricately patterned shawls, and lifelike sugar paintings. My days truly came alive. I used to love playing polo. Lu Xun had a field built for me right here in Xuanqing. He feared I might grow bored. Often taking to the field himself, he would fiercely feed me balls. His horsemanship was exceptional. Upon horseback, he resembled a youth chasing the wind. Not a trace remained of his former refined, scholarly demeanor. Truly, he was a man fit to be a rebel prince. Among the players accompanying me on the field, I noticed many Qiao tribesmen. My heart understood. Lu Xun had indeed submitted the map. Yet in this lifetime, I had not yet clashed with him in battle. He, too, had gained breathing room, relocating the Qiao people. Seeing my dazed expression, he smiled calmly. You will be my wife. I never intended to hide this from you. I nodded. I admired his cunning. He pointed to the dust swirling beyond the city walls. Xian's lands are windswept and sandy. I plan to build earthen walls, allowing the Qiao tribe to expand their farmland and recover. I pondered briefly. Why not plant windbreak forests instead? 3 layers, inner and outer, filtering the wind and tears. His eyes brightened. He took my hand of his own accord. I didn't pull away. Only my ears flushed slightly. But he grew serious. Xian's land is too harsh. If you give Lu Che their intelligence, you may return to the capital. He will surely spare you hardship. I shook my head. In this windswept land, everyone can hear my voice. I do not fear hardship, as long as this life sees no more uprisings. On my birthday, kites filled the sky above the city. Their designs were intricate. Some were delicate bees, others soaring eagles. Lu Xun even made one for me himself. An exquisitely crafted kite. I don't know what you like, but with a name like Yan, you must love the freedom of soaring through the sky. Holding the kite, tears suddenly welled in my eyes. He and I sent the kite skyward. His tone grew solemn. The world remains unsettled. I cannot yet grant you true peace. He was utterly serious. But I promise, this lifetime I will protect you completely. Your father and brothers will be safe too. My eyes welled up, and I smiled, saying, yes. The clear sky held wind. The kite soared higher and higher, flying farther and farther. On our wedding day, bonfires blazed in Xuanqing. I wore the Qiao tribe's wedding attire, my head adorned with a red veil studded with pearls. This was the Qiao tribe's wedding dress. Such exquisite craftsmanship would be commonplace in the capital. But in Xuanqing, it was the finest Lu Xun could find for me. Before the bonfire, everyone gathered around us outside. Lu Xun and I exchanged vows before the flames. He held my hand. You have chosen me, I shall never betray you in this life. The firelight painted our faces crimson. I bowed my head as he lifted the red veil from my face. The crowd cheered and jeered. Children ran and played around us, circling in circles. Young men and women gathered around the bonfire, singing and dancing. The land was barren, yet their hearts brimmed with hope. Steam rose thickly. Lu Xun was led away to drink. The men of the Qiao tribe drank with the most hearty vigor. He shed his usual refined demeanor, his face warmed by the bonfire's glow. Bowl after bowl of water wine. He only smiled at me, accepting them calmly. Several women and children chattered and laughed. No peeking at the bride. They ushered me into the house. The festivities raged on all day. 2 lifetimes. Even in my past life, when I ascended to the Empress's throne, all I received was a cold palace and Lu Che's icy gaze. Here in Xuanqing, I was steeped in this heat. Steaming and rising. The crowd dispersed. Outside the window, the commotion continued. I sat on the bedside, fingering the pearls on the red veil. A pair of hands reached from behind me, tugging at the veil. I froze. The figure wore the attire of a Qiao tribe warrior. His expression was haggard, yet his eyes burned with fury. It was Lu Che. Marrying him makes you this happy? He sliced my red veil in two. In an instant, he pinned me to the bed. We were pressed far too close together. His breath scorched my face. Is the Empress Dowager in your heart still less than the Princess Consort of Xuanqing? His eyes were reddened. What do you take me for? A dog trained by a general's daughter? To be provoked at will, then cast aside when unwanted? He bound my hands, causing me pain. Come with me. There's a time and place for tantrums. So he thought my trip to Xuanqing with Lu Xun was just a sulk. My voice trembled. Lu Che, you're mad. This is Xuanqing, and you're about to ascend the throne. His eyes darkened with storm clouds. Cui Yan. Don't push me. I avoided Lu Che's expression, biting my lip. Let me go. Lu Che's eyes flashed red with fury. He yanked my hand and dragged me outside. I struggled desperately, but he still bound me to the horse. The campfire songs echoed with lively revelry. The sweat-bled steed galloped through the darkness toward the city's outskirts. Lu Che was clever, the escape went smoothly. In less than the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, we reached the desert. Everyone was drunk with song. No pursuers yet. Endless yellow sands. Desolate desert. Lu Che stood atop a sand dune, gazing at the bustling bonfires of Xuanqing. Flames burned in his eyes. He pulled me tightly into his embrace, pointing distantly toward the other side of the mountains. The reinforcements were waiting there. We were going back. Rarely showing such tenderness. He pressed his lips to my hair. His fingers gently traced through my strands. Everything I owe you, I will repay. The most honored empress position, my affection, and a child. My eyes welled with tears. A child. Only in a past life did he owe me a child. He had been reborn too. So this was his if there is a next life. I'll repay my debt. But I had already let go. Yet he couldn't bear to part. As the first light of dawn arrived, the horse collapsed onto the sand. We both fell from the saddle. He lay beneath me, yet clutched me tightly in his arms. A pained groan escaped his throat. A pin had pierced the neck of the sweat-bled horse, leaving a gaping wound. Blood stained the yellow sand crimson. He was tormented and bewildered. Why? Was the capital not as good as this place? I resolutely pulled myself from his embrace. Lu Che, stop being foolish. I looked toward Xuanqing in the distance. A serpentine line of flames was already winding its way there. The Xian horses, skilled at running across sand, were far faster than Lu Che's Akeltak. Lu Xun isn't made of paper. He's come to take me away. You know full well that if I leave, war will erupt, and we'll relive the outcome of my past life. He remained silent. I knelt down, stroking his cheek. My marriage to him this lifetime is by imperial decree, and for the sake of my father and brothers. His stubbornness bordered on sickness. Grandfather Emperor can no longer control me. Ing. Come back with me. I didn't look at him. He clasped my hand, his voice breaking. Ing. I beg you. It was the first time he'd ever called me Ing so intimately. The longing of my past life was now so easily within reach. I shook my head. Yellow sand swept over my ankles. My skirt lifted, unfurling a crimson veil toward the sky. He watched the gently dancing red fabric. His voice was hoarse. Then what about you? What about your feelings? Only then did I turn to look at him. In this life, fulfill your duty as emperor. I will guard Xuanqing. If you do not exterminate his Qiao clan, Xuanqing will not be slaughtered in Shangjing. I pointed toward the edge of the yellow sands. That mighty fire dragon grew colossal, closing in on us with blinding speed. Where the moon returns, someone awaits me there. That place is also my home. I raced toward the end of the yellow sands. With every step, the sand swallowed my ankles. In the distance, the fire dragon surged forward, Lu Sun riding at its head. He saw me. His eyes blazed with starlight. Clothed in fiery crimson, he spurred his horse toward me. The sand tripped my feet. Yet I could not bear to halt. Throwing myself recklessly toward him, I would crash into the sand, tumbling down the dune. But I feared nothing. Only that I might never embrace Lu Sun again. At this moment of passion, I realized how profoundly Lu Sun had come to occupy my heart. Lu Sun leapt from his horse and raced toward me. Before the red veil, whipped by the wind, could fall, he slid to his knees. Reaching out to me, he caught me. As the veil settled, we clung tightly together. Seeing his wounded leg, I wept uncontrollably. I'm back. He rested his chin against my forehead. I thought you'd never return. Only then did I notice. The fire dragons searching for me were a formidable army. They had lain dormant in Xuanqing's most hidden corners, awaiting their master's command. Had I not returned, this army would have followed Lu Chei's trail, marching all the way to the capital. The tragedy of my past life would have repeated itself. At the very front of the army, several men wielding blades looked strangely familiar. They caught my gaze and covered their faces in terror. It was them! The city gate guards whose blades gleamed like axes the night I left the capital. Further back, I spotted many familiar faces, often seen among the imperial guards protecting the palace. The armored guards behind Lu Chei that night. So, that was it. Had I harbored thoughts of killing him that night, I would have died that very night. My heart pounded wildly. Lu Chei was indeed no match for him. Lu Sun's gaze drifted into the distance. Deep within the yellow sands, a solitary figure stood. Lu Chei struggled to remain atop the sand dune. Behind him, faint hoofbeats echoed, and yellow sand swirled. His reinforcements had arrived. The two armies faced each other across the shifting sands. The string snapped. Lu Chei raised his bow, aiming it at Lu Sun. A tiger raised becomes a menace, it must be eradicated. It was his instinct. I struggled to my feet and drew the dagger from Lu Sun's waist. Pointing it at Lu Chei, I pressed the blade against his throat. A bead of blood rolled down immediately. Go back! We shall never meet again in this lifetime. Lu Chei remained motionless. Lu Sun's eyes flashed crimson. Yet he read the resolve in mine. He seized my hand. This lifetime, Xuanqing shall never enter the capital. Yellow sand swirled past. Lu Chei's bow and arrows were finally laid down. He swung himself onto his horse. This time, he did not look back. Within the palace of eternal peace, red candles burned hollowly until dawn. Lu Yingjun herself removed her wedding robes and went to the small kitchen of Weiyang Palace to personally prepare a bowl of tofu soup. The Lu Chei of old. Even as the emperor's grandson, he had always adored this very dish. As he sipped the soup, he would marvel at how she had spent over a decade mastering tofu making. all to support his studies and martial training. Enduring the most humble of times. It had been ages since she last made soup. Lu Yingjun scalded her hand on the copper pot. Palace attendants knelt in terror, fearing they might anger the empress. But Lu Yingjun paid them no mind, ladling the tofu soup into a gilded cup. It looked exceedingly luxurious, just like herself at this moment. Returning from Xuanqing. Not long after, His Majesty passed away. A secret decree. The one buried alongside him was not the early departed empress, but rather the consort Liang, separated by mountains. The middle nobleman was gone too. He had been the most loyal, overseeing the emperor's funeral rites. On the day the imperial tomb was sealed, he personally placed the dragon-severing stone and never emerged again. The emperor had grown accustomed to his service. Those young servants were uncooperative. He had to attend to him personally. He didn't know what he was thinking. In Lady Liang Fei's presence, he still held some standing. Even underground, he could still convey the emperor's words. Lu Che had already ascended the throne. Yet last night, on the emperor and empress's wedding night, he did not return. Lu Yingjun sat motionless through the night until dawn. Her eyes grew red. They had clearly become the closest of spouses in the world. But between them, there seemed to be an insurmountable chasm. Her tofu soup entered Emperor Lu Che's Tai Chi palace. Yet she herself could not enter. Court attendants knelt everywhere. They desolately blocked her path, yet feared punishment. How could she punish them? In her youth, she endured scorn and torment. Now, she would never be the one to snatch away another's umbrella. Before long, the tofu soup was returned, unchanged. The young eunuch watched her anxiously. His voice trembled slightly. His Majesty said the tofu soup and golden cups were not a fitting pairing. For the first time, an indescribable bitterness welled up in her chest. The words emperor and empress, husband and wife, they felt like a cage. They had become each other's unreachable selves. When exactly had things changed? Was it that day during the winter hunt, when Lu Che plunged recklessly into the frozen lake to save her? Or that night at the palace banquet? He hadn't killed Lu Sun, nor had he pursued Shui Yan. She swallowed the bitterness. Her voice was so faint it seemed to vanish in the wind. What is His Majesty doing? A faint scent of burnt paper drifted through the chamber. Paper ash, fine and powdery, clung to the young eunuch's robes. He seemed even more frightened. Burning. Paintings. Just the emperor's old paintings from days past. Paintings? What paintings? She had never seen Lu Che paint. Before, whenever he could, he would take her to see his beloved pear blossoms. He'd been busy grinding tofu for her, busy teaching her two younger brothers. When exactly had things changed? Lu Yingjun gazed at the budding pear blossoms outside the hall. All her emotions sank into the suffocating depths of her heart. When the pear blossoms bloom, a cold wind swept the beaded curtains before the windows of Weiyang Palace. On a small table lay a fragment of a painting scroll. It depicted a pair of icy eyes, shining intensely. Lu Yingjun recognized the figure in the painting at a glance, Shui Yan. The palace attendant kneeling on the floor pressed her forehead to the ground. His Majesty burned over 100 portraits, along with a hairpin, brought back from Xuanqing. His Majesty insisted on seeing it every single day. Lu Yingjun rose to her feet with a sense of urgency. Was it given by Shui Yan? The palace attendant shook her head vigorously. My cousin, who serves in the Imperial Guard, said it was plucked from the neck of a sweaty blooded steed. Suddenly, Lu Yingjun felt utterly drained. She collapsed onto the soft cushion. She was different now. Even in her most wretched state, the softest cushions and finest stools would catch her fall. Cold and lifeless, yet supremely noble. Once, this golden threaded Nanwa stool was beyond her wildest dreams. But now, In this entire chamber, this stool was the least valuable. A wind stirred outside the window. Pear blossoms in full bloom drifted into the hall from the courtyard. So the pear blossoms had bloomed. In years past, Ache would always take her to see them. Lu Yingjun heard her own calm voice. Close all the palace doors and windows. The palace of eternal peace darkened. She finally found peace. His Majesty's governance is busy. The people's livelihood is improving. Let not the pear blossoms disturb His Majesty's heart. The palace attendants protested on her behalf. But His Majesty is selecting consorts again. If your highness does not compete, those noble ladies, Lu Yingjun, however, looked toward the dim inner chamber. Silence reigned all around. Once, she had only a dilapidated hut. Yet she never felt lonely or cold. Now, the grand palace was lavish. Yet its chill seeped into her very soul. What more could she possibly desire? Her two younger brothers were now cherished like precious treasures. Her widowed mother lived in utmost comfort. Everyone now kowtowed to the Lu family. Her father's dream had been fulfilled. As for her own wishes, they were like the name her father had given her. A faint firefly. A momentary flicker, that was enough. A long silence passed. A quiet sigh echoed through Weiyang Palace. I fought for it. If not her, it would have been someone else. State affairs had been troubled for years. His Majesty issued a self-reproach edict, waiving taxes and corvée labor for 3 years. Agriculture was revived, allowing the people to rest and recuperate. The people finally had food to eat, clothes to wear, fields and homes to breathe in. The day I discovered I was pregnant, my period had been overdue for more than half a month. Spring brought the busyness of farming and silk production. Lu Xun was busy inspecting agricultural affairs in the surrounding counties. I led soldiers to finish planting the windbreak forest west of the city. Returning, I slept soundly for an entire day. When I awoke, I saw only Lu Xun's deathly pale face. He feared I might never wake, like consort Liang. Yet this slumber brought him another cherished soul. His grief mingled with joy. He clutched my hand stubbornly, refusing to let go. That day, Lu Xun released a sky full of kites for me. My elder brother and father, worried my appetite might be poor, sent 2 cooks directly to me. An envoy arrived from the capital. He personally instructed farming methods, bringing cattle and sheep for breeding. As the envoy departed, he presented me with a small wooden box. Inside lay a golden hairpin. The envoy bowed respectfully. Long ago, Your Majesty found this, an old possession of the princess consort. Now it is returned to Zhao. It was the hairpin I used to kill the horse that day. I hadn't expected him to keep it. I smiled and accepted it. I hear His Majesty has taken a new consort? Has Wang Jiao also entered the palace? There are now over a dozen women in the harem. Many noble ladies, some who once bullied him. The envoy nodded. The emperor and empress are harmonious. This was the empress's wish. I understood. Lu Xun gazed at the wooden box, worn smooth from constant handling. His words were bitter. Your Majesty has truly gone to great lengths. Though Xuanqing is distant, the carriage returning this item has journeyed all these years. He sounded slightly mischievous. I'll have fine steeds selected for Your Majesty. It wouldn't do for horses to delay Your Majesty's goodwill in the future. The envoy was charmed, climbing reluctantly into his carriage. He wished he could stay and drink until dawn. Lu Xun opened the box, took out the hairpin, and asked me, "Shall I put it in your hair?" I noticed the difference in the gold hairpin and teased him. "Why aren't you jealous anymore?" Lu Xun smiled gently. "I had someone secretly replace the one you wore. This one is a replica I had made." I giggled. "You're so petty." He wrapped his arms around my waist, tracing the gentle curve of my belly. "It won't benefit anyone but me. The melted gold will make a perfect golden lock for my precious little girl. I smiled softly. Fine. The wind rustled through the trees. May the years be peaceful. The end.